Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to introduce to you Bonnie Hopkins Byers. She's with the San Juan County Extension Service. She's the program director at the Extension Service. She has been the extension agent for San Juan County since 2013. We don't want to make her that old. That's when I first met Bonnie, when I was working at the NMSU Agricultural Science Center. She's a real product of the Four Corners area, you might say. She has her BA in Sustainable Agriculture from Fort Lewis College in Durango. She has a Master's of Agriculture in Integrated Resource Management from Fort Collins. She has worked from my home area with the New England Culinary Institute out of Montpelier, Vermont. And she graduated from there in 2003. She's worked in a number of educational institutions and restaurants in this area, including in Durango, Dolores, Ouray, Aztec, Kirtland, Farmington, and a bit beyond in Denver and San Francisco. More recently, she's been involved with the community-supported agricultural program, which has a farm-to-board approach through the Harvest Food Hub and Kitchen at San Juan College. Building on this food production involvement and community support, she has been working to develop an outdoor agricultural classroom for San Juan County. And with that, Bonnie, I would like you to give a presentation of your ongoing Growing Food Forward Farm project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. It's always nice to see you. Mick is also my neighbor up the street, so it's great to keep in touch with him. But like he said, my name is Bonnie Hopkins, and I'm both the county program director and the agricultural extension agent here in San Juan County, which again is located in Aztec. We're right in the Four Corners area, which I think most of you are familiar with being from the Southwest. So Mick had asked me to talk about our Growing Forward Farm project. So today we're going to go over a little bit about cooperative extension. I think that while extension is different in every state, we share common goals. I'll talk a lot about the Growing Forward Farm project, but I really wanted to start with where it began and how we have come to where we are. I'll talk a little bit about our strategic goal setting and working with advisory committees within the community. Then I'll talk about what it looked like to build the infrastructure of the farm, kind of from the ground up. And then I'll talk about some of our key areas like our legacy orchard and our new farmer training program, as well as our 4-H and youth development programs. And we'll talk a little bit about challenges and opportunities. And here's one of my favorite pictures of the farm, which is our big green barn, which we love. So just a little refresher about New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension. The goal of Extension is to serve the citizens of New Mexico through education, community, and economic development. My job as an extension agent is to bring knowledge to the people or disseminate or distribute the information from our wonderful research specialists like Mick used to do at the Farmington Ag Science Center. It serves as a really great feedback loop. The community comes to me with the challenges that they're having. I go to our researchers and I say, hey, we're having a really big problem with this invasive weed. Can you come up with different solutions and opportunities for how people might control it, timing, different chemicals, maybe biological things. And then the researchers will do their work and then come back to me and I go back to the people. So it's a really wonderful feedback loop, and we are very fortunate in New Mexico to have a really wonderful support system, and we've got some incredible specialists behind all of our research. A big thing that we do in cooperative extension is house the 4-H program and youth development. We have one of the largest programs here in San Juan County. We have about 500 4-H members and about 130 volunteer leaders. So a very, very large program. I think we're usually about second in the state of New Mexico. So very competitive. We have the largest county fair in the state. lots of really incredible kids and family members that participate in our 4-H program. I also oversee the San Juan County Master Gardener program, which is a group of volunteers that help me give out best practices and information about gardening. And a lot of the questions that I get in the Extension office are about urban horticulture, tons of questions about trees. So our office is located here in Aztec, and I do a lot of different programming. Most of the programming work that I do is around food system development because, like Mick said, I went to culinary school right out of high school, and I cooked professionally all over the country. I did go from Vermont to San Francisco and Vegas and Denver and all of these places in between. But I grew up with a strong 4-H and FFA background, and I grew up farming, and I reached a point where I just felt that what I really cared about was the food and not necessarily the manipulation of it in a kitchen. And so I went back to school and got my bachelor's and master's in agriculture so I could work directly with farmers. So a lot of what I do is food system development, trying to get that local food into our restaurants and into our schools, trying to help the farmers grow different things. So that's what I'm really passionate about. Invasive weeds are one of our biggest issues in San Juan County, so I do a lot of programming around that. Like I said, I assist a lot of homeowners with urban horticultural issues. Sometimes I feel like a tree coroner because people don't typically call me about their tree issues until their trees are already dead, which makes my job a little bit harder because I'm usually the bearer of bad news when it comes to trees because they're just fried by the time I get there. And usually they haven't been watered. So a lot of what I do is integrating that urban horticulture best practice with best practices for drought management and water use. And then I do some programming around beef and livestock and also forage. We have the Navajo Agricultural Products Industry, or NAPI farm, here in San Juan County. And so they're the #1 alfalfa producer in the state of New Mexico. And so a lot of what we do in San Juan County revolves around forage production. So like I said, Extension is about bringing knowledge to the people. I think that we're in a very interesting time in cooperative extension. There was a weird window where I think people thought they could find all of their answers on the internet, and everyone in Extension kind of gasped at like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're not going to be relevant anymore if people can just Google an answer of what is wrong with my plant, or what is this plant, or what is this bug. But really what we're seeing right now is almost an overwhelm of information. And after the pandemic, a lot of people really want that face-to-face interaction. When they try to find information on the internet, what they are is just completely flooded with information. It's kind of like diet culture and what should you eat. Everything you can find, you can also find contradicting evidence. So I think that we are in this kind of upswing in extension where I feel like we're needed more now than we even were a few years ago, because people are just overwhelmed with the amount of information they can find on the internet, and they don't really know what is correct. I think when they have access to global information, but when it comes to plants, everything really is localized. So that localized information really comes in through the extension office. I deal with phone calls every day, all across the board. And a few years ago, I was really just seeing an older population come in, the group that maybe didn't use the internet a whole lot, really didn't feel comfortable. But now I'm seeing a big swing of younger generations of people calling in and calling the extension office for help. Really, our job is not to give people a direct answer, but to provide them with enough information that they can come to their own conclusions. That's really what we want. I don't want to tell someone what chemical they should use to, eradicate a weed. I want to provide them with enough information so they can decide if a chemical or biological or physical control measure is going to be what works best for them. We want to trust people that they can make their own decisions and really empower them with that information. So that's what we try to do every day. We do a lot with community development. A lot of people consider us dot connectors because we are just kind of woven into the fabric of our communities with the 4-H program and cooperative extension. I feel like with our agents, we're kind of everywhere in the community. And so we do get a lot of calls and requests to connect different groups and entities and sit on things like community boards. I do a lot of troubleshooting. for both agricultural producers and homeowners. Like I said, our 4-H kids are, when you've got about 500 of them, it's there's always something going on in the 4-H program. We also have our family and consumer science program here. Our agent, Rick Griffiths, makes us really proud. He's actually serving as the president-elect for the National Association of Family and Consumer Science Agents. He will be the second New Mexico family and consumer science agent to ever be president of the National Association, and he'll serve that role next year. So we're really proud to have him on board, and we like to say that we set the standard very high in San Juan County, but we're also very lucky because we have that community support where even when we come up with crazy ideas, we are met with support and a lot of buy-in for our programs in our community. So I want to preface before I go into this big presentation that I'm not sure how this program would come together in another community, because what we have here in San Juan County is very special. We have an incredible county administration and county commissioners that will drop what they're doing to come get their hands in the dirt. I don't know if that happens all the time. We've got a very active administration in Farmington, which is our, largest town in the Four Corners. So I think that what we have is special, and I don't know if it would have worked anywhere else, but I'm very grateful that it worked here. So now kind of diving into the Growing Forward Farm. The farm is a cooperative project between the San Juan County Cooperative Extension and San Juan County government, as well as New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension, to create an outdoor agricultural classroom and new farmer training area. The mission of the farm is to connect youth and community members to the legacy and future opportunities for agriculture in San Juan County and beyond. The Extension Office and its partners seek to put the principles of Extension into practice and provide hands-on opportunities for the community. So we've got this great little logo that we use that really just show that the farm project is a joint partnership between San Juan County and New Mexico State University. So you can kind of see the picture behind me and the picture here. This was actually into the first growing season. We entered into an agreement late in the fall of 2020. And like Mick said originally, I've been in the office as the ag agent since 2013. I've really been in and out of the office since about 2010. And the county had purchased this parcel of 12 acres across from our office, my guess is in the early 2000s, with the intention of building out a big campus of all of the county buildings. I think they were going to put a detention center there or something. But the previous county manager bought up all of the land around the county administration building with the hopes of building a big campus. Then the recession hit in about 2008, and it kind of got put on the back burner. So they put in a half-mile walking path where you can kind of see, if you're kind of looking around me, there's a walking path around the track. It's kind of a figure 8. And so the community and the county employees used it as a walking path. And for 6 years, I just kind of would let the community development director know, like, hey, anytime you want me to put that to beneficial use, just let me know. And they would mow it for the weeds and deal with the prairie dogs. And every year it just seemed to get a little bit worse. And he was getting ready to retire, and he stopped by my office and he's like, do you still want that farm? And I was like, yeah, Larry, obviously I still want it. And he's like, well, let's make it happen. So I went to the county commissioners and I requested a lease on the 12 acres of land, as well as the water rights. County commission was completely in favor and actually gave us a little bit of seed money, I think $2,000 or $3,000 to get started. And then it took about 6 months going back and forth between San Juan County legal and New Mexico State University legal, because this really hadn't been done before. So we had a big dream, and this was kind of one of our initial drawings, to build the new farmer training area, a barn area, the orchard, kind of a pumpkin patch and corn maze area. So we presented this to both the university and the county commission. Everyone is in favor. The memorandum of understanding, I think it's 20 pages or something, but it really outlines the responsibility of NMSU and also the county. So it's got lots of great boundaries in there of how the farm will operate and who is liable for what. So we we were able to get that MOU passed in about March of 2021, and we jumped into the growing season. The irrigation system was completely dilapidated. We didn't have enough money to put it together, so really we did like a Band-Aid, and we just planted a cover crop of winter wheat because the field had been fallow for almost 20 years, and there was just almost no life left in it. So our goal that first year was really just to get something growing and to learn more about the land. So once we had the MOU in place and the cover crop planted, we worked with the NRCS to create a conservation plan, and they came out and took some great measurements, and we worked through the irrigation system and what we would need to add and change, and then we started looking for funding. So right off the bat, we started involving all of the community partners that we could. And then we created an advisory committee. We thought that it was really important. Obviously, me looking at the land for 6 or 7 years, I had lots of ideas of what I thought should happen, and what I thought was important, but we wanted to make sure that we had the buy-in of our stakeholders and our community members. So we created an advisory committee. We have folks from the county on the committee. We have 4-H families. We have different farmers, lots of different people that sit on that advisory committee. We try to have an annual meeting at least once a year, but really anytime we're making big changes on the farm, we'll call and just communicate with those partners to see if we're going in the right direction. A lot of what's happened on the farm changes a lot because situations change every day. So I think it's really important that we work through that advisory committee structure to make sure that we are on the right track and that we're still doing what the community needs and really keeping this a grassroots effort and kind of a community place of gathering. Initially, we set a lot of strategic goals. We really looked at long-term goals of, bringing every kid in the county out to the farm so that we could build back agricultural literacy and connect people with their food system. It was always on the top of our priority list to create a legacy orchard. San Juan County used to be nothing but orchards. We were one of the largest apple producers in the West. And we had the rail that would take the apples and export them. And we lost the rail system, I should know the date, but a while ago. And with that, we lost a lot of our historical orchards. But fruit trees are very special in San Juan County, and it seems like everybody in the community has 1 or 2 fruit trees in their backyard. So we really loved the idea of bringing people together through these legacy trees and just kind of building that sense of community. We knew we wanted to have a new farmer training area because the average age of farmers in New Mexico, I think, is 65, and what we're seeing is a lot of people just getting out of the farming business. We see a lot of land that's being sold into development out of agriculture, and we just wanted to prevent that to the best of our ability. So then we started looking at some of the logistics of the farm. Like I said, it was just an open field. There was about 400 prairie dog holes. So we had to do things like fix the irrigation, put in a deer fence, put up some sort of structure, and find lots and lots of money. So that's really what I have been dedicating a lot of my time to. So when we started looking at the short-term and long-term goals, we really looked at what it was we were trying to achieve with the farm. And for me, number one, that is to maintain the relevance of extension. We want to make sure that cooperative extension is a valued part of our community and that we are always looking at new and emerging ways to serve the community needs. So we wanted to be able to address that to the best of our ability. I know with adult learners, it's kind of funny in extension, a lot of what we do is put out literature and publication when we know for a fact that adult learners are more visual and hands-on. So I really loved the idea of being able to create demonstration areas where people could physically get experience with the project, to kind of connect all of those different key factors. And it's a really wonderful thing to see all the time. People will stop by the farm and say, oh, I've been trying to put in a drip irrigation system, but I just couldn't figure it out from watching YouTube videos and reading all of these things. And, can you walk me through how you guys set up your system and really what it looks like so I can better understand how to go do it? And so that's been probably the best dream come true, is when people are really able to figure out exactly what they want to do by visually being able to see it. Composting was always a huge priority because we don't have an interstate here. Bringing in fertilizer and things like compost and organic material makes it incredibly expensive. And our landfill has some of the most green material in the state. So we wanted to partner with some key private businesses and community members to really build the importance of composting and that nutrient cycling, because it benefits everyone. Really, the idea of orchard management and invasive weed management are always really high on the list. Some of our other objectives that we came up with were to create a small farm business incubator or new farmer training program. We knew that we wanted to support young adults and youth internship opportunities, and always kind of have that career focus. I think it's so easy to tell people, oh, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be all of these things, but I don't think there's enough people really talking about these agricultural jobs that are so incredibly rewarding, not just for yourself, but for your community. We wanted to create demonstration areas for best growing practices in as many ways as possible. Every single thing on the farm is a learning opportunity. We wanted to host countywide field trips for elementary students and really start to build out an ag tourism industry in San Juan County. We are having a summit this summer to focus on ag tourism, and we call that the Local Food Summit. So that is going to be the summer. But we got to these objectives by really looking at the community challenges. So the aging farmer population, losing farmland to development, a lack in interest from youth in agriculture. Like I said, they think of every other job first. There is a big disconnect between our community and where their food comes from. Things like nutritional value, taste, flavor, different varieties. We're always dealing with drought and water issues, and we have a lot of challenges around water quality. So here are some initial pictures of the farm. This picture on the left was the original Google Maps picture. You can see it was just a vacant field with a million prairie dog holes in it. So this is located just directly across the street from the extension office. And then the picture on the right was that first season where we got the irrigation reinstalled and quite literally band-aided together and furrowed the rows and got some cover crops planted. So one of our strategic goals really involved creating a visual that the county commission and NMSU could really wrap their heads around, because we recognize that a lot of the people that were supporting the project wouldn't get the opportunity to physically set eyes on it. So we worked with a landscape architect from Farmington, and she was able to create this design for us. So this design has been a really great guiding factor in a lot of the programs that we are working with. So you can see towards the bottom of the screen, we have about 2 acres in our new farmer training program. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. You can see where the orchard is. We kind of have a bit of a corn maze and some different gardening demonstration areas, and then things that were important to us were putting a parking lot that was big enough for a bus to turn around in. So there was a lot of very specific details about ADA pathways and accessibility that we've had to go over that, most traditional farms would not. So that first year, we were successful in updating the irrigation system. You can see a picture of one of my staff band-aiding the pipe together and finally getting a good seal on it. We planted lots of cover crops and different bushes and burned off a lot of the invasive weeds. We hosted a lot of volunteer opportunities and had the community come out. We've had an amazing response from volunteers. I would caution people, volunteers very much prefer to do things like deadheading flowers. We burned out a lot of the volunteers because we put up 221 fence posts by hand, and none of those people ever came back. So we are very grateful for all of our volunteers. The farm project never would have happened because we had very limited resources. So we were very grateful. We had big groups of 100 kids at a time that would come out from different schools or church groups. And the very first thing we did was, like I said, enclose 7 acres in deer fencing. That really helped us create a physical barrier. We have a strong wildlife migration path that comes directly through the farm. We didn't want to completely fence them out. We just kind of fenced them around the production area. Then we did the barn, and the first grant we received was a Healthy Soils grant to create a composting demonstration area, to put in some pollinator and riparian demonstration area, and to create a xeriscape area. And all of those are just to kind of educate people on best practices. So here is some additional things that we did. We were able to get the barn up in 2021. We worked with a local beekeeper, and they put in an apiary with 2 hives, and they continue to manage that. We'll talk a little bit more about the orchard, but we do have 55 fruit trees in the ground. We started hosting school field trips last fall, and we had about 400 or 500 kids come through, which was a great learning experience. And then I have continued to work through and apply for additional grants that we'll talk a little bit more about, but specifically I need staff. So we've been working with the NMDA on some specialty crop block funding. We had one in 2020 and then again in 2021. So I've been able to hire a farm coordinator and a project coordinator for something that we call the Northwest New Mexico New Farmer Network. So in addition to the funding that we have been able to get, we did have a settlement in New Mexico over the Gold King mine spill that happened in 2015 that had some really serious impacts, not necessarily ecologically in San Juan County, but definitely socially. We had a lot of farmers that stopped using their irrigation water, stopped farming altogether because they just didn't trust the water quality or that it wasn't going to happen again. And so that's been something that we've been fighting for a long time. We've had community members that didn't want to purchase any food that was grown on the Animas River. You know, they wanted to make sure that their food was grown on the upper San Juan so it wasn't contaminated. So we've had a lot of pushback. And last year, the state settled with a number of parties in that settlement, and we were able to achieve some funding. So I have received some funding to create a position for a workforce development coordinator and someone to actually oversee the farm business incubator program, which up until now has been an unfunded position. We'll have some AmeriCorps Vista positions and some things like some different infrastructure that'll come through. Like I said, I spend a lot of my time seeking out funding. So to talk a little bit about that, primarily I work with community partners. I've worked a lot with our Soil and Water Conservation District. They're a phenomenal fiscal agent. We do have a disadvantage of being about 7 hours away from New Mexico State University. So sometimes it can be challenging to work with them as the PI on a grant. If I can find a local institution like San Juan College or, like I said, the Soil and Water Conservation District, that makes it a little bit easier for us here. And, you know, like I said in the beginning, San Juan County is a very special place. There's not a lot of ego here. Everybody is just happy to help and pitch in. So we've had great support from a lot of different entities to find funding for the farm project. So that funding that I got for a few years of staffing positions, I got $420,000 from the Gold King Mine settlement. I have had some funding from our local farm and range improvement fund, the specialty crop block grant, Healthy Soils. We're working with the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Department. They're helping us pay for the bus tours to get the kids out to the farm. I've had a little bit of money for our new farmer development program and some private donations that we've had from some different nonprofits and community groups. And then last week we found out, maybe it was the week before, that we're also getting a new extension office facility through the Gold King Mine settlement funding. So they have approved the initial round of applications, which San Juan County did submit on our behalf to both applications that came out, and we were awarded $3.2 million to build the extension office, and then the county is contributing about another $300,000 to that. So the new extension office and training facility will actually be located on the farm just outside of the fenced area. I'll actually have enough office space for all of my staff, and we'll have room to grow. We'll have classroom facilities, which we've never had before. We always had to go somewhere else to teach our extension programs because our office is incredibly small. So I have interns working in the hallway and people working on the floor. So we're a little bit crowded here. So we're very excited at the idea of breaking ground on the new extension office facility. So lots of wonderful things happening. So currently what we have on the farm is an outdoor agricultural classroom. We are into our third season of the small farm business incubator. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the orchard. The composting demonstration area, we actually have 7 different types of compost that we can demonstrate to people. And then we've worked with San Juan County to make us some incredible educational signs. So we have a bit of a self-guided tour where people can walk around the farm and read the different signs and learn about the different practices, even if we don't have a physical staff member to give them a tour. We do focus on specialty crops because I'm very passionate about selling our food to the local schools, getting more food into our local farmers markets, and into our food hub that started a few years ago in Farmington. It is very important for us to teach agricultural literacy and just have people understand the food system and how it works. One of the biggest opportunities is really in workforce development. A lot of our farmers need assistance to scale up their farms. Most of them, it's just husband and wife, or it's limited to just their family. But all of our farmers need farm labor help. And so we are hoping to work with some socially disadvantaged groups, folks like returning veterans, combat vets, folks like that maybe can't hold a traditional job, but would really benefit from the healing aspects of growing. And then our goal is to, really train them to do agricultural labor and then hopefully transition them into either becoming a participant in the new farmer training program or helping them get set up on some of their own land that they can actually go into farming. So all of that kind of goes into the bigger picture of our food system development. And I didn't really include any of those specific slides in this presentation, but if you want to know more about that, you can definitely go to my extension website and look up the work that we've done for what we call local food, local places. So we were awarded probably 2018 an EPA program called Local Food, Local Places, and we worked for a year, that entire year for 2018, we worked with a national committee on really building up what we called our community action plan for our food system development. And a lot of that stuff is still on our website, but we set a lot of strategic goals, things like build a food hub, expand the farmers markets, create a new farmer training program. So a lot of that has been very helpful in seeking out these grants. And that document has been invaluable for finding funding and making sure that whatever extension programs we are doing fits into the larger scope of food system development and kind of community support. So now I'll talk a little bit about the legacy orchard. Here I just took a screenshot of our orchard map. We are working with a local nonprofit out of Cortez, Colorado called the Montezuma Orchard Restoration Project. Jude Schwemeyer is the director of that nonprofit, and he is just a magician. He makes me want to quit my job and save apple trees. And I'll be honest, I don't actually like trees that much because they're just really challenging for me. But Jude does a phenomenal job of finding historical varieties of apples around the Four Corners area and bringing them back to life. So him and Dr. Lombard from the Farmington Ag Science Center were actually able to find a tree that was thought to be lost or extinct, which was the Cedar Hill Black. There was one living tree in Cedar Hill, New Mexico, so they were able to take some cuttings off of that and graft new trees. So we actually have 3 Cedar Hill Blacks planted on the farm, in addition to things like an Arkansas Beauty, Wolf River, Sops of Wine. So we have right now 3 rows of apples. We have, I think, 33 apples. There's 11 trees in each row. Then we have a row of peaches and a row of cherries. And then we worked with a local community group called Leadership San Juan, and they chose the orchard project as their group project for the year. They actually planted all of those fruit trees for me, which was incredible because I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. And then they actually fundraised enough money to build this beautiful pergola inside the orchard. So we have a beautiful kind of staging area in the orchard where I teach the classes when the kids come out. We've done a lot of really incredible things. So we have all of these trees in the ground. We're still hoping to plant 3 more rows, but this is where we sit with the funding that we have. Within the orchard, we really looked at a traditional 20-foot spacing because we wanted the orchard, first of all, to take up a lot of space, but to educate the community on what different spacing practices might look like for different varieties of trees. So tree selection, well-adapted variety, and then really the actual physical dimensions of setting up an orchard is what we try to educate to people. We will have a low-grow clover cover crop within the orchard, and then we use some interesting irrigation techniques. We have a low spray pop-up irrigation system. Since there's a lot of foot traffic in the orchard, we really couldn't do any flood irrigating or drip irrigation because we needed to keep the cover crop going while keeping the trees alive. So we are working on installing that system, and then we are going to put in some moisture meters so that we can really educate people on how much water each of the trees actually needs throughout the year, because everything that we do is, you know, about education. And then we have been doing some pruning demonstrations. So we did a training workshop about a week and a half ago where we had probably 35 community members come out in the blowing wind, and we showed them how to train these very young fruit trees so that they could have successful production. So those classes are very well received. The pruning classes are very well received because, like I said, so many people have fruit trees in their backyard. We have some major issues with improper tree pruning practices in San Juan County. I don't know if this is the right place to say it, but I'm going to do it anyway. The state of New Mexico does not really have any requirements for becoming a landscaper. So a lot of people will just say they're a landscaper when they don't actually have any experience. And so we have a lot of people in our community that have their trees just completely butchered by someone that, you know, kind of came off as a professional, but actually didn't have any credentials or insurance or bonding or, you know, nothing. They literally just showed up and did the work. So it's not uncommon for trees in an entire parking lot to show up just topped overnight. We see that almost every day here. So it is really important to us that we can be a demonstration area for people to see what best practices look like when it comes to tree health and management, not just in the orchard, but with all of the trees on the farm. So that's really important to us just because there are so many poor practices happening around the county. Okay, so now I see a question. Oh, you guys can see my notes too. Let me see if I can change that. Huh. How about that? Okay, so moving into some of the educational programs. Our new farmer training program, I wanted to go over a little bit more of our educational techniques and also our system of evaluation, because that's really what has been helpful in us finding funding sources and also being able to successfully complete reports. So when it comes to our new farmer educational program, we do a mix of a hybrid course that has weekly lectures, and we put the course on the NMSU Canvas platform. That included additional reading and assignments and things like a farm map and food safety programs that they could do. We talked about vegetable production, season extension, funding opportunities, invasive weed management and identification, understanding soils, irrigation systems and planning, on-farm food safety, specialty crop marketing, and opportunities in San Juan County. So in 2021, we had 3 participants, and in 2022, we had 7 participants in the new farmer training program. And this is one of our adorable 4-H kids that was helping us pull weeds on the farm. So we do a lot of one-on-one teaching with our new farmers. We try to help them complete a farm business plan because we want to set them up for long-term success. So they need to know how much time are they able to commit to the farm project? Where do they intend on sending? How much money do they need to make? How much are they willing to invest in the system? We are able to give them about 1/4 of an acre, as well as the setup for the irrigation, which we found were the biggest hurdles to starting a new farming operation. You know, not having a fence, not having the access to irrigation, and not having access to the land. You put all of those things together and it's really difficult for people to get into farming. So our goal is to help them overcome those initial hurdles, and then they can stay on the property for up to 4 years and kind of grow their space every year if they choose. And then ideally in the 5th year, we would find them additional land. We have a separate program again that I haven't talked about here, that New Farmer Network program. New Mexico State University is the proud owner of LandLink New Mexico, so that is a new development. So we're hoping to build out the land linking program, and we actually have about 300 acres in San Juan County that are available for lease, that landowners are willing to let people farm on. So we're working to build out that system. Our hope is that we can train up these new farmers and then connect them with farmland in San Juan County or Northwest New Mexico that is currently fallow. So lots and lots of great things happening. In addition to that one-on-one experience and then offering them that land, we provide ongoing technical assistance, kind of that troubleshooting, that what do I do now? Do I pull this weed? Do I mow it? What are the biggest issues? You know, how much time do I need to be spending in the farm right now? So really, we just help them one-on-one troubleshoot through the growing season. So with that, we have some great surveys that we've developed to kind of create some evaluation answers. So the goal in year 1 were all successfully accomplished and presented through our community newsletter, social media posts, website promotions. So we really try to work with the community and let them know what's going on with the farm. In our new farmer training program, evaluations were completed through both the online quizzes and participants' oral responses. 50% of the participants took the training to start a farm business. 27% advanced into the incubator program. So I think with the first and second season, when we did the classes, the first season, I think we had 12. I think the second season that we did the new farmer training program, I think we had almost 30 participants in the new farmer training program. And then 7 of those went into the actual on-farm experience. 75% of the incubators sold into the local marketplace. We had 2 of our farmers that kept their products those first years or shared them with just community members or family members, but didn't necessarily sell them. And 25% of our participants actually quit their day jobs to become farmers, which is a dream come true for me. So I talked a little bit about what we do with our 4-H kids, but one of our favorite programs is what we call the 4-H Activity Summer Camp. It's a 4-day summer camp for kind of that 16 to 18-year-old aged 4-H group. One day is focused on animal science. The next day is focused on kind of urban horticulture, specialty crops, healthy soils, composting. The third day is focused on agricultural careers, and we kind of do a speed dating exercise where the kids get to really talk with agricultural professionals, and we have everything from people that shoe horses to the folks from the Ag Science Center and different agency partners to people that make their living farming. And then the last day of the camp, we go around to different farms across San Juan County and learn about their practices, challenges, opportunities, what it actually looks like to be a farmer in San Juan County. So that's always a really good time. We have tons of fun kids out there. So we have developed a curriculum for the Activity Camp, and we published that. It's a step-by-step guide for other agents to use with all of the different activities, everything from a seed bomb activity where they, get clay and mix it with soil with wildflower seeds and kind of toss those out into a field strategically. There are a few exciting things that we've borrowed from other extension agencies. I think the Oregon NRCS came up with a Soil Your Undies exercise, which is really cool. During the activity camp, the kids planted some white cotton underwear in different areas around the farm. One got planted in the parking lot area, another got planted in the riparian, one in the orchard. So they just kind of spread them out. And then about 6 weeks later, the kids went out and dug them up, and we talked about the microbial activity around the farm and why the underwear that were planted in the parking lot didn't really get decomposed, but the ones in the riparian area were nothing but threads. So just kind of a fun activity to talk about how soil is really alive. So just fun exercises like that during activity camp. So when we looked at activity camp, 80% of the kids that participated surveyed that they were able to gain valuable knowledge and skill that would allow them to be more independent in their agricultural practices, which is one of our biggest goals. And 50% of the participants stated that they learned about new agricultural careers. I'll have to have you come back. Okay. And 50% of the participants stated that they learned about new agricultural careers that they may be willing to pursue, which was very important to us. So overall, when we were looking at the evaluation for the last 2 or 3 years of the farm project results, we were able to establish the infrastructure and goals that we had set. We created the advisory board of community members. In the first 2 years, we were able to secure $254,000 in grants and donations for farm projects. We held 14 workshops for over 300 community members, hosted over 500 volunteers, and we trained 18 new farmers in those first couple of years. But the farm is much bigger than just what we do physically on the farm here in Aztec. It's had some deep community impact. So the Growing Forward Farm Project has provided San Juan County staff the opportunity to take outreach and education off of the computer screen and into the hands of our community members. After 2 years of online programming and learning during the pandemic, the outdoor classroom really was able to give community members a safe outlet to learn and develop skills in a secure environment that fostered mental wellness, community connection, and new challenges. The impacts of the new farmer training program included the implementation of agricultural business practices. The participants were able to grow specialty crops from seed to market and demonstrate valuable skills through the creation of their business operation. Our 4-H participants were able to look into the future and reevaluate some of their career goals and opportunities. Our activity camp provided a safe space for kids to reconnect with fellow community members and ignite a passion for the 4-H program. During the pandemic, our 4-H program, obviously slowed to a halt. And so having these hands-on programs and opportunities and things that are new and exciting has really been a great opportunity for our program to kind of get back up and going. Every year we have an open house where we invite community members and folks up from New Mexico State University to really come on the farm and look at the progress that we've made. And overall, just the simple creation of this outdoor learning area has created this hub for knowledge and outreach that there's just a lot of buzz and a lot of people talking about the things that we're doing. And so it's just a great opportunity to provide that exciting energy. And obviously I'm really passionate about the fact that, the thing people are talking about is farming and agriculture. So that's very exciting for me. When we go into kind of opportunities looking into the future, obviously we're very excited about the idea of the new office and a training facility. It will allow us to expand our 4-H and youth development programs, but also create a place for our farm business incubators to kind of have a home and a place. Some of the things that we're looking at is we'll have a commercial kitchen in the new kitchen facility or in the new office facility. And so we're really looking at value-added food products, food entrepreneurship. How can we create these shelf-stable products from stuff that we're growing here in the community? We're looking at job creation. We're trying to create jobs not just on the farm, but with the farm programs. I'm also very passionate about ag tourism, and we're working this year on diversification strategies, and it's been very nice to be able to bring farmers onto the farm and have them look at those considerations that maybe they didn't think about. How would a bus physically enter your farm? Where would it turn around? How many bathrooms do you have? How do they get cleaned? Do you have accessibility for people that might have disabilities? What are you thinking about growing during different times of the season? When do you have a lull that maybe you could put something on your farm and even just have a handful of tours throughout the year? Because it's just a very big industry. Tourism is a big industry in New Mexico, and so we want farmers to be able to take advantage of that. There's a really big push in Northwest New Mexico for outdoor recreation, and the big effort that we are trying to do is connect outdoor recreation and agricultural production, as well as things like snacks. And we want to make sure that people that are coming here to recreate in the Four Corners are eating local food, and we share a lot of target audiences, so that's very important. There's a big opportunity, like we said, for workforce development. We have a lot of our extractive industries in Northwest New Mexico that are kind of fading out. We've lost some of our coal-fired power plants, and so we have a lot of people who are out of a job. And a lot of those people that went into extractive industry, things like the oil field or working in the mine, a lot of them are also farmers. And so we want to help those people get back into farming if that's what they would like to do. And so we're looking to expand that new farmer training program. We're working with some other nonprofit groups on the reservation to create a similar project at a farm in just outside of Shiprock, a nonprofit farm out there, which is very exciting, so that we can all work together, because that is what we do in San Juan County. Everybody just tries to support each other and build up each other's programs and pitch in wherever we can. So in looking at the challenges, obviously the number one challenge is funding. While we're able to find a lot of money, chasing grants is very hard. And because we don't have enough experience on the farm, it's kind of been this chase of, I'll have an idea of what we need to find funding for. I get the funding, but by the time we actually have the money in hand, our needs and our priorities have changed. And now I'm committed to, fulfilling the deliverables of that specific grant and that specific process. So that's a big challenge. The farm won't really ever be able to be self-sustaining because of, our model within cooperative extension. It's not our goal to really create a system of profitability. We want to create that profit system for the farmers. So really what we're going to have to look at is long-term funding from either the state, the university, or the county. But that is probably the biggest challenge that we face. We have a lot of challenges around water and irrigation. We're very lucky to be out of drought for the most part. Today in San Juan County, we've had a really great water year, which is very rare. But most of the time we are in extreme or exceptional drought conditions. And so it has been a good opportunity for us to be able to show people different techniques that they can use. We demonstrate almost every type of irrigation system that anyone uses, flood, furrow, drip, sprinkle. We use all of the different types of irrigation systems so that we can really walk people through that process. But that is going to be an ongoing challenge. How can we grow more food with less water? How can we use the water more efficiently? And then we share our ditch lateral with 4 other neighbors. And so that is also an ongoing challenge. But I just try to remind myself that it's the same challenge that all of our farmers face here in San Juan County. And so it just makes it very real. We do struggle with an enormous amount of pests. We do have a big prairie dog problem, lots of invasive insects and weeds. We really struggle with dodder and Russian knapweed. Lots and lots of challenges with pests on the farm. But again, we try to use it as an educational opportunity. And, can we try flame weeding? Will that work with this? So we try to do research and everything that we can and be able to show that to folks that are able to come on the farm. Staffing and physical help on the farm is an ongoing issue that kind of correlates with the funding. But not just, I mean, I have money for positions, but really finding qualified applicants has been a major challenge in cooperative extension across the state. So we're just not seeing a lot of qualified applicants applying for these positions for a variety of reasons. And then I would say probably our biggest challenge on the farm is this sense of urgency where, while the farm has gone from nothing to this hustling, bustling, very active farm in a matter of 3 years, which seems like a blink of an eye to us because we've been on the ground working through it. There's a lot of community members and people that are outside of agriculture that don't understand how we haven't done more. And so there's always kind of this community push to do more faster. And that's just not how farming and agriculture works. So there's obviously things that we wish we had done 3 years ago, but we didn't know better until now. So lots of different challenges and opportunities, but in general, the farm has been an amazing opportunity and experience for our community to come together. It's something that everyone is really proud of, and we're hoping that we can build a really strong model so that in the future, if there are other extension agencies that have access to something like a piece of land, that we've kind of built this model of how they could build something similar. So with that, here is my contact information. If you would like to reach out to me with any other questions or would like to follow up, if you're ever in San Juan County, New Mexico, please give me a call. We do farm tours usually every day, Monday through Saturday. Try to give the staff off Sundays at least. But if you're ever in the area, we would love to have you on the farm. If you have any suggestions or inputs or fantastic ideas, we are also open to those. So I will leave my contact information up, and Mick or Bev or Don, I don't know if any of you have any specific questions.
Just a few comments. Outstanding presentation. I mean, even as you were talking, I've already thought of so many people I want to make sure I forward this to so they don't miss it. Really good resource sharing, and like the way that you've leveraged other extension offices to gain some great bounce on their programs that are now your programs. So just excellent work. Thanks, Bonnie. I really appreciate it. Donna, Nick, any questions or other comments?
No, I'm all set, but I just wanted to, as far as questions are concerned, but I want to congratulate Bonnie on putting this together, both today, but over the long period. 3 years is a very short time frame, but she's packed a lot into it. It's been great, and it's not the culmination of your career by any manner whatsoever. You've got a long ways to go. Great job.
Great job.
Thank you. It's definitely taken an army, and I can't thank my staff enough. Wes Medlock, Andrew Foster, they've really been the hands on the ground that have been just doing a tremendous amount of effort while I sit here at my computer and peck away to try to find more funding when I wish I could be out there on the tractor with them.
Yeah.
Takes a full team. Well, thank you so much, Bonnie. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and so appreciate all your effort and energy.
Yes, I just had a question or two, Bonnie, and one of them is, your first degree was in sustainable agriculture, and can you kind of share a little bit about what that means? Because it looks to me like it's really sustainable, like how to develop all the way from taking some fallow ground, the land component of sustainable, to the workforce development, to the education. So is sustainable a bigger word like that? What you're bringing to the program, I think, with your knowledge and what that means, sustainable agriculture.
Yeah, and obviously 10, 15 years ago, the concept of sustainability is different than it is now. I feel like it's kind of become a buzzword and a trendy word, but really what it means for me and what I really focus on is really the development and the concept of an ag business. First and foremost, farms have to be profitable for people to continue to do them. And that's not what we see a lot in our area. A lot of people farm in this area because it's a tradition, because they have access to the land. It's something that they have always done with their families, but it's not necessarily sustainable because they're losing money doing it. If you look at the agricultural census, the average farm in San Juan County is at almost a negative $900 collectively. So we know that our farms are not making a profit in this area. People are farming strictly out of passion, which is really that social side of sustainability, but you can't have, socially sustainable without economically sustainable. So for the last, 10 or so years, I have worked with a lot of farmers on how can they diversify their operation? How can they build out that sustainability, to protect their business for future generations and even just for themselves. My goal is always to have people that want to farm. And what we see is a lot of people that have a day job that supports their farming. That's more like a hobby, but it's not a hobby if you're farming 50 acres. I mean, that's a full-time job that, people are plowing, with the headlights at night, or, bringing in all of these community partners and things like that. So really the business aspect is what I focus on primarily with sustainability. And, some of that comes down to the environmental component as well, which is really that third arm of sustainability. So you've got to have environmental sustainability, economic, and social. It has to be all three things to really have that definition be met. But it's more economical to use less water in farming. If you're growing fewer weeds because you're using target irrigation, if you're using less chemicals, then that's obviously less expense and less labor. If you're not having to till every year and you're not having to put those inputs into the soil every year, it actually is better on your bottom line eventually. So I try to look at all three of those aspects with our farmers, but every one of them is so unique that I try to let them take the lead. And I try to just provide those resources on things like diversification, business planning, and then market opportunities. We want to make sure that the market can support any, uptick in production that they do. So it is those three components for me, but primarily I focus on that business component.
Okay, so it's kind of a social and economic and
Environmental.
Yeah, the
environmental.
So that kind of leads to my second question. You had one grant that was the Healthy Soils grant, and you always hear a lot of information about creating healthy soils, but I noticed that you had under that grant, you had compost, specialty crop, pollinator and riparian demonstrations. Are those all kind of part of healthy soil, or was that just some different
Yeah, so
deliverables?
There's 5 principles to healthy soils, and hopefully I will get them right. One of them is maintaining a living root. So, obviously the roots of our plants are keeping the ecology of the soil alive. That's kind of their food source. And so we don't want, to the best of our ability, we don't want to do a kill and kill all of the plants so that there's no more living root. So maintaining a living root is one. Covering the surface, keeping the soil covered is another principle, and that can come in the form of cover crop, mulching, green mulching, adding compost on the top of your soil, but really adding something that is protecting that topsoil and keeping it covered so that you're reducing things like erosion and all of those other challenges that exposed soil bring. The third, I'm going to miss these. One of the others is integrating animals or livestock, and that does include pollinators, but having that component of animals really does help to increase the health of your soil. So that is another one. I'll have to look up the other two, but the New Mexico Department of Ag has a Healthy Soils grant application that actually closes in a few days, but the farmers just have to look at those principles and see what they need on their farm. And so we were able to create those demonstration areas using that funding to kind of educate people on the different principles of healthy soils.
Well, when you said you were saying pollinators is kind of, I was wondering when you said incubators, you used it kind of with workforce, and I was wondering if you were talking about chickens and things, eggs, incubator. What did you mean by
No, it's a business incubator. So kind of
that? Okay.
a warm little box for new farmers. So that's typically what we talk about with the new farmer incubator is it's kind of a safe space for new farmers. While we do what we call an egg to chick program with the 4-H program, and we do hatch out baby chicks in incubators with kids. I have made a hard line with my staff, no animals on the farm, because we have our hands full already, and I don't want to put anything on the farm that requires, 365-day-a-year care. So we may grow into that, and we do have some temporary animals that come on the farm during things like our school tours. Sometimes we'll have a petting zoo or things like that, but in general, all the animals on the farm outside of the wildlife that migrates through are temporary.
Well, I'm just overwhelmed. I could ask more questions. I would really look forward to seeing your operation, and just like everyone else is saying, how do you fit this all into your day? I mean, it's education, demonstration, workforce development. Your advisory committee must be something.
I have an army of support, and that's why I said in the beginning, I don't know if this would work anywhere else, because I'm very lucky that I don't have doors closed anywhere. I mean, I can say the craziest things like, hey, I need to find funding. I need $4 million for a new office. And not one person in the county was like, oh, Bonnie, you're crazy. That's too much. Everybody was like, okay, let's figure out how to happen. You know what? You guys do amazing work, and we want to support that. And we believe in the work you do in extension. So we are going to support that. So we have just an incredible network of support that is not just agencies, but, municipalities and government officials, but also our schools and our senior centers. So everybody really just works together here. And none of this could have been accomplished without all of that work and really folks coming together. I love, probably my favorite
Bonnie
example.
Has only 3 or 4 staff members out at her office, and that includes administrative staff besides professional staff. She's just
I do have a little bit more.
Build the networks throughout the whole area that we rely on the community to an extent that's beyond comprehension.
Yeah, I do. We have 4 agent positions here in our office, 2 4-H agents, myself as an ag agent, and then we have our 4th family and consumer science agent. I have 2 secretaries. And then, it's not very common for extension offices to hire grant staff in New Mexico. That's common in other states, but our New Mexico offices haven't really operated that way. And so I'm very lucky that even on the university level that every once in a while they tell me I'm nuts and I need to slow down. I do get that comment of like, Bonnie, you're taking it too far. But in the end, we make it happen. So right now I'll have 4 grant funded positions on the office, plus that AmeriCorps. Last year we had 5 youth interns, 3 from New Mexico State University and 2 from a high school program. We work with Farmington and Aztec Municipal Schools to get interns during the school year that actually come out to the farm and learn different things. And so I think in the office last summer I had 13 staff, and most of them were working on the farm, but I do have 1 physical office space. So we are definitely bursting at the seams here. But really, this only happened because of the community support. That's really what it came down to.
I'm dying to know what your specialty crops are. You can say specialty. When I think of specialty, I think of like elderberry or jujube but I don't know what
So specialty crop as a definition is really just like farmers market crops. It's anything that doesn't fall into the commodity list, which are, commodity foods are things that are grown just in huge mass quantities and factory farms. So specialty crops can really be anything. There is technically a list But the specialty crops that we focus on, obviously our new farmers, they can grow whatever they want. One of our farmers was growing cut flowers. That's technically a specialty crop. We had one growing traditional Navajo corn, and she takes that and goes through the process of steaming it and drying it and grinding it in, well, I guess it's not dried, but steaming it and then grinding it into what the Navajo call a kneel down bread. It's kind of like a tamale with kind of a coarse ground roasted cornmeal. And then they cook it in the ground. So then she took all of those loaves of kneel down bread and distributed them in the community. So we have one farmer that's doing that. She'll be back again this year. And then three of our other farmers were growing just anything they could sell to the schools. The schools want a lot of fruit, things like melons. Our farmers really don't plant perennial crops because, you know, we kind of do go year to year, but lots of tomatoes, cucumbers, things that the schools want. We have a lot of funding in the state for farm to table, farm to school, to give our local agricultural producers first priority into our schools. So we just got even more funding for that in the legislative system. And then we've advanced to farm to senior center, farm to daycare, in addition to farm to school. So we're trying to open all of those market doors and access across the state so that there's additional funding for these farmers. And we didn't talk about that. Mick mentioned it, but we do have the food hub that opened a few years ago in Farmington that I helped a lot with. That's called the San Juan College Harvest Food Hub. And that's really our distribution center. So San Juan College has really taken that and run with it, which is phenomenal. So I can focus on kind of the new farmer training area. And then the farmers can distribute through the food hub, which has really opened just a tremendous amount of doors. And I would say that the farm is about 20% of my job. So there's still a lot more of what I do in the community. So we have a lot of really amazing things happening in San Juan County.
Yeah, and you might also just add to the fact that the county does not stop at the Navajo reservation. The Navajo Nation comprises that northwest corner of San Juan County, the whole western side of the county, really. And the extension service works very closely with Navajo Nation too. And they have NMSU facilities out at Shiprock and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we've got a really broad audience, and I think San Juan County is the size of the state of Connecticut. It takes me about 4.5 hours to drive from edge to edge. So we have a very large county with lots and lots of people. So lots to do here, but we're grateful for all of the support. Miss people like Mick in the system. Always really grateful for him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now and appreciate all the work you've done, Bonnie.